So this is our GUI, and so we can, once you show the logical disk. So we've got the 3 logical disks. Logical disk 1, 2, and 3 is what we're going to be exercising during this. Hit the physical one. The physical, this is just to show you, it's a classic. You can do things GUI level operation. We've got running right now our performance monitor software that I talked about, so that we can take a look at what's going on as we do this, and then we'll show you a couple of ways we can look at the performance. Why don't you start with the performance graph? So you can look at this and see it as a bar graph, or go and show the detail. If you need to, you can look at it as an ongoing time graph. So what you can see here is that purple, by the way, or pink, that color, whatever color it is the most important logical disk. And you'll see that the 2 lesser important ones are running at a lower rate. And they literally are, you can just see a little yellow there, so it's blue and yellow for the other 2. You'll be able to see it in just a minute better. But the idea is that we're in a steady state. Response time is steady for the others, for all of the volumes. And now what we've done is we've created a situation with iometer where we've got a Q depth of 8 down here and 16 up here. What we're going to do is up it to 32 for the 2 low priority tasks, and then obviously that'll cause a slight disruption to service for the most important one. Yeah, it takes 2 hits, I don't know why. Okay, so if you go back to the performance graph, now you see that our disruptive workloads, if you will, are starting to kick in and start to take away and steal I/O. Why don't you go to the detail list and we'll look at average response time. So what's basically happening is we're starting to see response time jump for our most important task, and is still better for our other, because we flipped the Q depth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, let's go to the CLI. So in the CLI, you can do a display to get the status of whether or not things are active. And what you can see in looking at this is that our 2 upper and lower limit controls are turned off. And this is basically, we keep them off because we don't want them interfering accidentally with anybody. So it takes an action to turn them on. So the first thing we would do is turn them on. And then set the upper limits for both of our low priority tasks. We set one to 750 and one to 500. Okay, ready to go? Yeah, perfect. And now what happens is our most important task is going to start resuming its rightful place, and the 2 disruptive ones, even though we still have the 232 Q depths and only 16, what's happening is the flow control software is saying, whoa, you can't go over 500 for the one or 750 for the other, and we've given the priority load all the, it can take whatever it wants. We haven't restricted it in any way. So what you see happen is the disruptive tasks are starting to come down, and our most important task is coming back up to operate at a good level with a good level of response time. So go back and show the response time number again. So you can see now, all of a sudden the most important one's cruising along, and the other 2 have degraded because they're the low priority tasks, and I don't want them to get in the way.
So what's the timing on that? Does it take like 30 seconds of sustained activity before?
It starts happening automatically. So in other words, it immediately starts acting. We do every 10 seconds in our display graph, but it started happening immediately. So there isn't really a delay in terms of starting to implement the policy. Depending on the workload that's thrown at it, it obviously has to suspend some I/O, hold back some I/O on the lower priorities to let it switch over. But it's virtually instant, immediate. Instant's a bad use of words, but it's immediate.
Is there any plan on having things such as a named tier where you don't have to set specific entries, but you say this Lunner virtual disk group is platinum, bronze, so you don't have to do the command line tuning of it?
So basically you say platinum gets everything it wants, bronze gets a certain predefined limit, and copper gets nothing. At this point in time, I don't know of any action going with the engineering team to do it that way.
And then what about your admin interface? Are you going to go to like an HTML5 version instead of older style? Yeah,
we're working on, and this is one of the things that I've been working with Japan on. I keep doing that. Sorry. I'm working with Japan on an ongoing basis to improve the GUI and admin interface. So first step is we've been doing a lot of work on use of language, and we've seen a lot of changes in that. And now I'm on an ongoing discussion with them on how we take it to yet the next step, which would be a much more robust version of how we implement the GUI. At this point, it is what it is. But as you can see, being what it is, relative to setting and moving around in it, is reasonably easy and non-abusive in terms of that. We always want to make it better and improve it, but we think it's pretty good for where it is right now.
So okay. The I/O limiting is strictly a CLI capability?
At this point, first release.
It's interesting how sometimes we get questions around our user interface and can it be a little fancier, etc. But at the same time, some end users actually give us a different type of feedback as saying, well, your user interface is very easy to use, very simple, and so it depends. I mean, it does get more flashy and nicer, but
I just see the IE icon down there, and I cringe at thinking, how's it going to work on a Mac?
Sure.
Got it.
Then, because you have a CLI, then presumably you could script this. So you could say at 5 p.m. switch it to this.
Yes.
Later on, you could
correct.
Yes. And that's basically what you do with the data tiering. You know, I want it to run every day at 438, and with all of the CLI info, we can do that. So once you're set up, it's pretty non-abusive.
Do you have a RESTful interface to CLI, or
I'm sorry?
A RESTful interface to management?
Not. I'll ask you to be sure, but we don't, do we? What our interface for the management?
REST. So it's, HTTP GET PUT kinds of things. A lot of the cloud vendors are moving to a RESTful interface for a lot of their solutions.
Yeah, all of the menu in GUI can do from CLI.
No, but he's talking about a RESTful type interface. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna say I believe the answer is no at this point.
Is there a plan for that or PowerShell?
There's not a plan that I'm aware of for that. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick demo, and I'm actually reasonably on time, so that's good news on top of everything else. Other questions?
You might be ahead of schedule.
So the key management for the encrypted is all internal then, or you use keymib for external?
It's all internal. Okay. So it's generated and passed off between the disk and the controller inside of the system, so there's no exposure of it.
And then during replication, stuff like that, you ensure that the data that's passed between two systems, if it's encrypted on one, is also encrypted in flight and encrypted on the other?
Well, keep in mind, on this one, the encryption is done using self-encrypting drives. So it's not a management type approach from the top.
Okay. So what you would do in planning RDR is have both sides have encrypted drives, and then it's not encrypted in flight, right? So in flight is where the biggest exposure is, and there's also many solutions to that that are quite good. So rather than go and compete with existing solutions, so our worry was at rest.
Is the key management server on the controllers then? It's not as a separate management server?
Correct.
Okay. from a replication perspective, are you fiber channel only replication? Do you replicate over IP?
We can replicate over iSCSI.
All right, okay. You can.
Is it synchronous as asynchronous, or?
You can set it as semi-synchronous, asynchronous, synchronous.
Is it snapshot based, this semi?
You can use snap. You can take a snap of what you want to replicate, break the pair, the snap pair, and then remote replicate the snap if you choose to.
Okay, right, okay, all right.
And after we're done, we can also visit the lab, and you can take a look at the equipment as well.
Sure.
And
yeah, we will have. I think we end the day downstairs, so we'll walk by the lab. And
what external key managers do you support? Like SafeNet, Tivoli, any of those?
Well, given that we're using the HDD for encryption at rest, so from the key management perspective, we don't.
Well, the drive
words,
itself for encryption doesn't really matter. You need to feed a key to the drive.
Yeah,
So-
it's internal.
It's internal. It's generated within the drive and the controller. It doesn't get it from external.
All right.
And you mentioned secure erase, so that's on top of just destroying the keys. You can actually go in and securely erase the drive.
Yes, we support the DoD erasure. So once you're done, we also offer a program for retention, obviously, right? For the government agencies and stuff. When they retire / one of them fails, they keep it and melt it. So we have programs for that.
Yeah, we find customers, I mean, just telling them that it's encrypted and you can just get rid of the key, it's typically they still want to actually shred the data.
Yeah, and then once we shred it, if they choose, they can keep it when it's retired. So we offer all those levels.